So it's because of love. I got married with a guy from Belfast in '97. So my love story with Belfast, it's a long one. And New Lodge is a very peculiar place because of the high-rise flats. And because they're very unique. It's Belfast is small houses, but those high-rise flats were really striking. And so I decided to get interested in them because I thought they were a bit like the Kieslowski Decalogue for people who knows that Decalogue. And I realized it was actually the place where originally my husband's father was, where he was born. And so that's how I decided that was an important place for me to explore. And for 7 years, I was just there, come and go, and meet people and become a bit like an anthropologist who becomes like the wallpaper, and they forget in the end. And then they allowed me to film them.
And how did you meet? I know a lot. Sorry. How did you meet Joe?
Yes, it's a funny anecdote because I knew a guy who was a local historian, and they were making me meet a lot of these people that are nearly like professional of the post-conflict. So they tell you the stories, like they know the journalists want some stories, and they would come and tell you their story, you know. And I was a little bit fed up. So I said, you don't know someone completely crazy, completely apart? And he said, yes, I know one guy. And he brought me that afternoon. And then I sat down with Joe, and I really fell in love with him because I thought he was very funny, very deep, very touching. And so that's how it started. I just sat down the whole afternoon. He told me loads of stories. And then from that day on, I just knocked at his door more often.
Are there any questions from the audience or comments?
Hello. Yeah, so that was a really interesting documentary. Thank you. I was quite interested with your perspective from the older gentleman, Joe. Obviously, the documentary was from his perspective. And throughout the documentary, we've seen like the burning of the bonfires by the youth. And then Jolene, the young woman, was sort of unsure whether she was British or Irish. Did you find that the youth nowadays in Northern Ireland, do they really care about the conflict? Do they care about what happened those years ago? Because I grew up with my parents, you know, who went through the Troubles as well, you know, family members and whatnot, and for them it's very much alive. But for people my age, it's something in the history books, really. So what's the vibe in Northern Ireland just now?
Thank you for the question. I would say that it's very present. It has been passed through the generations like a trauma that you really pass in the genes, you know, so it's still there, and it's especially there in areas that are deprived. The more they get rich, the more they get work, and they have possibilities for a normal life. So in certain areas in Belfast, people are not that stuck in the past, but where like in North Belfast is probably one of the most deprived areas. There's a lot of young male suicide because there's not a lot of perspectives, and there is this heritage that there is still very alive. Now, sometimes I have the impression that it's alive because they've been hearing stories, they've been collecting all the stories, but sometimes the very young guys don't even know who Bobby Sands is. You know, so sometimes I'm not sure they know the exact reasons why they're still angry. It's like that Joe's generation knows the details of history, where they just get the aftermaths. They just transmit something. Like they just continue something that I'm not completely sure that is much more than just how do we get our energy and our hate and angry out. I don't know if it's clear.
Any other questions or comments? Now is your chance. Did you hear that? It was a brava.
Thank you so much.
Maybe another question about the confluence of real life and fiction. When did the idea come that you will have like reenacted scenes in it, and how did that sort of feed into the film?
Yes, well, it became like an urgent matter, because I knew that so many stories, wonderful stories, and like terrible memories that Joe had to tell, they were in the past. So I was like, this film is just going to be told, you know, it's just going to be stories, oral stories. So how do we get an image, but that makes us feel what those times were? And to be honest, I decided very late just to try. I had the chance for 1 week. The producer gave me the whole team, and I had the chance to try whatever I wanted. And I thought, you know what, if reenactment could work, it would be amazing. So I went and I bought a coffin, a cheap coffin, because it was a bit broken, so they couldn't sell it. So they sell it to me. And I brought it to New Lodge, and I said to Joe, and I said to all the others, you know, do you want to try? Do you want to try to see what it is like to reenact that moment of your uncle being in the coffin and after he was shot? And I had found Sean, who is the child, and the child is very central in the film. You know, it's really a film about childhood trauma. So once I found Sean, I was like, okay, we can try. But ideas of director, they're only ideas unless the characters, they make them own, and they really feel comfortable with that, especially in this kind of nearly film therapy, you know. And so I realized shooting that scene that it was just like, oh, we're going to try something. It's just a trial, and then we reshoot it. But it was so strong, we never shot it again, because we would have never found something as strong. And I realized that they were ready, they wanted it, and it was becoming a community project where they were going to be able to just make this story come alive again.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Then I'll ask one. Maybe you can tell us about the music and how that evolved, because in the end there is this big reveal of the choir, for example, and how did that work? Like, and I think in the credits it says that you co-wrote some of the songs.
Yes, it was a very interesting progress for me, because I asked the composer to be there since the beginning. So I asked him not to deliver some music when we were in the editing, but to be there during the shooting, as we were shooting in Belfast, and he's from Belfast, it was possible. And so we decided that there were some themes that they were very strong and important for us. And the end song, it's a good example. Me and Jolene, we thought, you know, people from New Lodge or people that are still alive after a war, they're like weeds. They're like weeds in the concrete, and there's a lot of weeds in the concrete in New Lodge. And these weeds, you can do whatever you want, but they will grow again. So we started to work together, me and Jolene. We sat at the table and we started to work on the text and just get ideas together, and then ask some friends that are better than us in writing to help us to get the final text. And then we recorded the first version with the musician. That was simply piano and Jolene's voice. And then we decided to try bring it in the pub and see how it worked. And because we thought this is really strong, and we decided we wanted the whole community to sing it. And so we involved a choir, and we recorded the choir. So the music wasn't this like written since the beginning. It just added layers and layers and layers, a bit like the film. In the film process, we were adding layers and layers and layers, and to arrive to the final result.
Thank you very much. Anyone? Maybe you can tell us about the role of the therapist and how that became or came into the film, because I think that's quite an interesting story.
The therapist was really my lucky day when I met her, because obviously a lot of the deepest feelings of Joe, they go through the therapy. And actually men, especially men in Belfast, don't talk about their wounds or their problems. They make jokes about it, and they will never talk very easily. And one day I realized that Joe was going through a hard time, and I was like a little bit concerned, and I knew he was seeing a therapist. So I just ran down to the place where I know she receives her clients, and I asked her to help me with Joe, and I asked her to help me to understand what we was going through. And meeting her was like, oh my God, if ever she could be in my film, like if ever. And it's these crazy ideas, and you think, she will not accept, Joe will not accept, and even if they were accepting and we were thinking it's not going to work. And then in the end, I dared to ask her, and she asked Joe, and Joe said, okay, let's give it a try. And again, that was a huge door that opened for the film, but a door I would never expect it to happen, to be open, And actually, Rita, after the film, she said to me that the film gave like a frame, like nearly a safe space where Joe was able to express his trauma and to make it exist in nearly an artistic way that sometimes help to heal, and so I'm so thankful to Rita and to Joe that I was able to film things that normally you cannot film. And when I was there, I wasn't even looking when like the session was filmed. I was just like in a wee corner trying to take notes. And the sessions became like the bone of the backbone, of the whole film. So he would say, oh, and then my grandmother got a caravan with the money that she got for her son's death, and I would write down, got the caravan, and then I would have every 2 weeks of shooting, we would stop. And so in those other 2 weeks, I was going, we need the caravan. Where is the place where you were going on holidays? And I'm going to go and see that place, and I'm going to make it happen. That image that I got, and that is very, very strong, that I got in your therapy, and then I will make it exist, and we will go and we'll make it exist for real. And probably the other lucky thing was that the flats and even the caravan site are so stuck in the past, are so still in the 70s, that the present and the past were able to communicate and to coexist in the same space. And that was really important for me, because that's exactly the feeling when you are in your lodge, when you're in those flats. You have the impression that the past is still there, and still we are in the present now. But there is a continuity, and the ghosts are still there. The ghosts of the dead are still there, and they're very present.
Maybe one last question, Alessandra. How did the protagonists react when they saw the film? Because it is a sad film in a way, but how did they see the film?
we actually, before locking finishing the editing, we decided that we thought that's the final edit for us, but we need them to see it and approve it. So we had a screening in Belfast in this very small cinema. And Freedom was there, the dog as well. We had beers, of course, and we watched the film together. And I think it was a very strong experience for them, because it's not every day that you see yourself on a big screen, so everything is so much bigger, everything is so much magnified, you know. And they laughed a lot, and they cried as well. And they said, in the end, we had no idea how you would have put all that material that we shot for months together. And it was like such an incredible experience to see the threads. It was fun as well, because Joe decided that after an hour, he said, "Stop, I need to go to the toilet, I need to go for a smoke." So we had to stop the film. And then at the end, he said, "I think next week you have to show it to me again, because I'm not sure I've really seen it. It's too much to take in one time." So I went back to his flat, and then we properly rewatched it. But they're very proud of it. And now we're gonna have the premiere in Belfast in June, and I think it's gonna be a very important night for that area. And they know they're like the spokesmen, you know, the ones that they can speak for everybody else, because that's Joe's story, but you will find other millions of very similar stories in that area.
Alessandra, thank you very, very much for talking to us, and thank you very much for this fantastic and sort of emotionally gripping film, and good luck with it.
Thank you very much to all of you. Thank you to the festival for, you know, putting up my film. And I know it's not easy to speak with someone with a phone on the big screen, but thank you for listening. Thank you very much. Thank you. And vote for my film.
Exactly. Vote for her film. If you want to vote for the FLATS as part of the Kino Audience Award, supported by Dreisat and BR, please do so when you leave the cinema. Thank you very much for coming, and have a safe trip home. Thank you.